Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me tell you why it's a bad idea to partition your backup drive. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So I often see Mac users get an external drive for a backup and then decide to partition it and use part of that drive for something else. For instance, let's say you start off with a new Mac Mini. Could be an iMac, Mac Studio, MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, whatever. You've got a new Mac and let's say it has a 1 terabyte internal drive. And you do the smart thing and decide to start a backup. So you buy an external drive. You get a 4 terabyte external drive. They're not that expensive nowadays. You can get one for about $90 that just plugs right in, doesn't require any external power, and it's so small you barely notice it on your desk. So then you're ready to back up. But then you realize you only have 1 terabyte in your internal drive and not all of that is even used. A 4 terabyte drive seems excessive to back everything up. Maybe you should do something else with the rest of that space. So you decide maybe to partition it. Create a 2 terabyte backup partition and a 2 terabyte partition that you could use for something else, for archiving old projects and such. And then you set it up so that the backup is just backing up to that first partition and the second partition is free for you to use for whatever you like. That sounds like a pretty good deal, except that there are 2 main problems with it, and the first one is a showstopper. So let's say that you have a file on that other stuff partition. Let's call it File A. It's an important file. And let's say one day that hard drive fails on you. Hard drives fail. They can fail for a variety of reasons. It may not be that the hard drive breaks. Maybe you drop it. Maybe it gets crushed. Maybe it melts in a fire. Maybe you lose it or it gets stolen. A lot of reasons that that drive could suddenly not be available to you anymore. And when that happens, that file is gone. It was on that other partition. You weren't backing it up anywhere. But then you say, well, wait a minute. I'm backing up. Can I back up external drives as well as internal ones? I'll back up both my internal drive and anything that's on that other stuff partition to the backup partition. Maybe I'll even make the backup partition bigger, or maybe I don't really need to. So I am backing up my other stuff. So now I have 2 copies of that file. One in the partition where I access it and the other is a backup. This will actually help in some situations. If you accidentally delete that file from other stuff, then you can recover it from the backup partition. Or if you make a change to it, you can go to the backup partition in Time Machine and recover an older version of it. So it will help in some situations. But you know what situation it doesn't help with is if, again, you lose access to that drive for whatever reason. Now you've lost both your backup and all of the things and other stuff. Even though you actually had 2 copies of that file, an original and a backup, both of those are now gone because you don't have that drive available anymore. The short term for this is basically single point of failure. Your original and your backup are on one drive. That drive acts as a single point of failure. If you lose the drive, if it gets stolen, if it melts, if a meteor hits it, whatever, you have lost the original and the backup in one single failure. And for this reason alone, you should never partition a backup drive. Just have it as your backup. Don't have any other files stored on it anywhere in another partition or otherwise. Now here's another reason this is a bad idea. You may think that because you just have 1 terabyte of internal storage and maybe half of that's being used, that 2 terabytes is more than enough space to back things up. And indeed, it will work fine for a little while. But eventually, all of the space in your backup will fill up. Now, how is it possible, say if you have half a terabyte of data, that it could fill up a 2 terabyte drive? Well, remember, Time Machine is an incremental backup. So it's going to keep versions of your files as you change things. Like, for instance, as you write your novel and your word processing document changes every day, it's going to save new versions of that to the backup. So you can go back in time to yesterday's copy or last month's copy or the original copy from last year. In addition, if you delete files, it's still going to save a copy in the backup. So you create a large file, maybe a video project, and now you delete it. The last copy of that file is still going to be saved in your backup. That's the whole point of a backup, because if it was an accidental deletion, then you want to be able to recover it. And you may not realize that you accidentally deleted it until a few days, a month, 6 months later. So the backup drive will slowly fill up as you create files, modify files, and delete files. So even if you're not using anywhere near 2 terabytes of storage right now, you eventually will hit the limit on the drive. Now ideally it would take years to do that, but it's going to happen a lot sooner if you decide to partition the drive and only have a 2 terabyte backup rather than having a 4 terabyte backup. So you want to give Time Machine as much space as you can. Don't do something that's going to limit the amount of space it has to back up your files. If you really need external storage, a better situation is to just get another drive. This eliminates both problems. So you have your 4 terabyte Time Machine drive. They cost about $90 now. Maybe you get another drive, maybe a 2 terabyte or a 4 terabyte drive. The 2 terabyte drives are now about $60. Or just dedicate that 4 terabyte drive to your backup and hopefully your internal drive is enough for all your file storage. If not, you could always use cloud storage like iCloud Drive or any other cloud service to expand that. So I hope this makes it clear why you should avoid partitioning your Time Machine backup drive. Give Time Machine as much space as you can and avoid a single point of failure. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.